So this is just more of a thought experiment video and a little bit advanced on the human multi-dimensional anatomy. So if you like a little bit more of the esoteric stuff, you might like this. So a lot of what I've learned is that as these senses have opened up is that I would phrase it as our orientation. So your standard orientation within your consciousness is within 3 dimensions, and as such, then you are limited by the subjective experience of those 3 dimensions. As your energy centers up and as that energy ascends and moves and hits the pineal gland and the third eye becomes awakened, then you're oriented, your senses can become oriented outside of the 3 dimensional orientation. And so one of the things I noticed is that, as above, so below, as within and without, and looking at the natural cycles and looking at how things move, and just being very curious. I go to these spaces where I can have questions answered and commune through vibration or commune through emotion. And so these energy centers move in these patterns, and we orient ourselves with our mundane consciousness, our sense perceptions, as though we are eyes looking out, and you're touching, feeling, and sensing, and that reports back to you and creates the sense of where you are, and you feel you are here, right? Because you're oriented 3 dimensionally. You're oriented through your sense organism, and this sense organism is more of a dimensional control panel, and so that each one of these centers is a field of frequency that you can inhabit with your consciousness. But also when you string them all together and you open up this seeing, then the ability to enter into this like kingdom or into this multi-dimensional space becomes available to you. And so as above, so below. So I noticed that these centers turn, and there's these vortexes, the toroid field. And so as I orient myself within the spaciousness of my own non-local being, what I noticed was that we see in the archetypal UFO, or we see in the archetypal angel, these symbols and patterns. And one of them is that there's this spinning, right? And it looks like they're spinning. Or an angel might appear as this burst of light, like this, And so, because we're 3 dimensional, and because we're oriented with our mundane consciousness 3 dimensionally, we would think our vehicle, right, because we're up and down, we're in the vertical plane here, would not be oriented in a spinning plane. However, and you can test for yourself if you have this way of being, if you orient yourself within your own chakra system as on a vertical plane, what would you see? You would see what appears to be a light ship. You would appear from that vertical plane. If we orient this way, up and down, we appear as a string of vertical lights spinning in a direction, right? And so that in and of itself is really interesting. But then you would wonder, what control, how do we vector, how do we move that light ship of our multidimensional body? And so deeper still is, as a kriya moves through your body, which is an energy wave, moves through the physical body, you can vector that space with these symbols. And a lot of you have seen these symbols. And so as you understand your orientation multidimensionally, and you move onto a horizontal plane with your chakra system, and you can vector into a symbol, what you'll see is that, for example, like the yantra, which is like a triangle, and it's got all these petals that come off of it. This is very like classic archetype for something that someone might see. And so, how do you create a vector within these spinning wheels to move through the multi-dimensional consciousness using the energy of the kriya? Well, you place with that there's that center point in the triangle of the yantra, and what you're going to do is hold as the kriya moves through your body, as the energy moves through your body, hold your focus on that pinpoint of that symbol, and that's your vector space. That's going to allow that energy to organize around a space, and these are universal archetypal forms, right? And so, what I noticed is that that yantra is actually not. We see again, we're in flat world here, so we see the yantra as this symbol upon the in this space here where it's flat, but actually what it is that pinpoint is a rod. Okay, it's a rod through space around which all of those triangles rotate. Okay, so it's a really beautiful matrix. And so what you can do is orient yourself vertically with your non-local body, and then as you see these symbols and you get the fuel of the kriya moving through your spine and through your mind, you pinpoint one of those spaces, and then with your will, you can choose to go somewhere. So anyway, some of you will get it, some of you will not get it. It's pretty advanced. Um, anyway, just a thought experiment, something to do, and interested. Hope it helps. Well.